The morning sun cast long shadows across the high school parking lot as students trickled in, laughing, chatting, jostling for space. Amid the noise and energy, Amara moved quietly through the crowd, her wheelchair gliding steadily over the concrete. She wore a deep blue hoodie, her natural curls pulled back in a braid, and headphones resting around her neck. She had gotten used to being invisible. Some days, she preferred it. But not today. A group of varsity boys leaned against a row of cars, all in matching red and white jackets with oversized letters stitched to the chest. Their laughter was loud, louder than usual. One of them, Chad, the quarterback with a reputation for arrogance, stepped forward. Well, he drawled. Look who's rolling in like she owns the place. Amara didn't look up. She kept her hands on the wheels, calmly maneuvering around them. She had no time for childish games. But Chad wasn't about to let her pass that easily. He stepped directly into her path, forcing her to stop. "You didn't hear me?" he said, a mocking grin on his face. "I asked if you were racing to class. Don't want to get run over." His friends burst out laughing, nudging each other like they had just heard the joke of the year. Amara slowly raised her eyes to meet his. Her face was unreadable, no fear, no anger, just quiet defiance. "I don't have time for you," she said softly. That only irritated him more. He crouched down, getting uncomfortably close, his voice dropping to a hiss. "You think you're better than us just because everyone feels sorry for you?" She remained silent. Then, without warning, he grabbed the collar of her hoodie and yanked it upward. The crowd gasped. Her wheelchair tilted slightly, but she remained composed. Her hand stayed on the brake. "Let go," she said, her voice low and steady. Chad leaned in closer, his face twisted with forced bravado. "Let go, or die," he spat. The laughter behind him stopped. It was too far, even for them. Some students pulled out their phones. Others looked away. A teacher began rushing over from across the lot. But before he could reach them, Amara gently placed her hand on Chad's wrist, calm and controlled, her eyes locked with his. "You're angry at something," she said, "but it's not me. You just need someone to feel small so you can feel big." Chad blinked, surprised, not by the words, but by the peace in her voice. There was no fear in her. No hate. Just truth. He let go. The silence that followed was louder than any shout. Amara adjusted her hoodie and rolled past him without another word. And in that moment, without throwing a punch, she shook the very foundation of what they thought strength looked like. That night, the same silence that had settled over the parking lot clung to Amara's bedroom. The glow of the street lamp outside filtered through her curtains, casting soft shadows across her walls. Her wheelchair sat beside the bed like a loyal companion. She stared at herself in the mirror, just her reflection, nothing more, nothing less. But to others, she was a story. A headline. Teen girl paralyzed in crash after saving younger sibling. They never talked about what came next. Her fingers brushed over a small, worn photograph taped to the corner of the mirror. In it, a much younger Amara beamed, dressed in a white karate gi, her black belt tied tightly around her waist, standing beside her mother and younger brother. That was before the accident. Before the world started looking at her like she was made of glass. She closed her eyes, and memories poured in, not of the crash, but of the fire that came after. Flashback. Weeks after the accident, Amara sat in her hospital bed, staring at her lifeless legs. The doctors had done all they could. Nurses came and went with soft voices and sympathetic smiles. Her mother stayed strong, always hiding her tears until she left the room. But Amara, she broke silently. Not because of her legs, but because she thought her life, the real her, was over. Then, one afternoon, an unexpected visitor walked in, Sensei Rina, her former martial arts instructor. She carried a duffel bag and the same warm, commanding energy Amara remembered. "I heard about what happened," she said, placing the bag on the floor. "And I thought, maybe, you forgot who you are." Amara looked at her, confused. You were never just a fighter with legs, Amara. You were a fighter with heart. That weekend, Sensei Rina wheeled Amara into a quiet, empty dojo. The room smelled like wood and tradition. Amara hadn't been there since before the crash. She felt like an imposter. But Sensei knelt in front of her. Martial arts is not just about kicks and punches. It's about balance, discipline, mind over body. You still have all of that. And so began the climb back. Weeks turned to months. Amara learned how to move, block, redirect energy. She practiced using her arms, her wheels, her core. She sparred with others. She fell. A lot. But she always got back up. She wasn't trying to prove she could still fight. She was proving that she had never stopped. Present day. Back in her room, Amara opened a drawer and pulled out a faded black belt, creased at the edges, marked by years of sweat and grit. She held it in her lap, letting her fingers trace the fabric. There were no crowds watching in that dojo. No likes, no shares. Just quiet resilience. Quiet power. The world had decided who she was after the accident. But now, she was the one deciding who she'd be next. She looked at herself again in the mirror. This time, not with sadness, but with a quiet fire that refused to die. The school day dragged on, but the energy around campus felt different, tense, uncertain. Whispers trailed Amara in every hallway she passed. Did you see what Chad said to her? She didn't even flinch. She didn't fight back. She didn't have to. By the time lunch came around, most students had seen the video someone posted, just a shaky phone recording, but enough to capture the moment Chad grabbed her hoodie, and how she looked him in the eye and shut him down with silence alone. The video didn't show fear. It showed control. Power. Now, the same crowd that once looked past her was looking at her. Some with respect. Others with confusion. And a few, especially the varsity boys, with shame. But Amara wasn't walking, or rolling, around with pride or revenge in her heart. That wasn't her style. Still, when she saw Chad standing by the vending machines, she knew she had to speak. He looked up as she approached, startled, then straightened his posture as if preparing for a confrontation. His friends were nowhere nearby. You gonna hit me with some karate moves now? He muttered, not making eye contact. Amara stopped in front of him. Calm, composed. No, she said. But I will tell you something. Chad's eyes flicked to hers, searching for anger. But there was none. You humiliated me in front of everyone, she continued, but I've lived through worse. The pain you tried to cause me, I've already survived that kind of hurt. And I'm still standing. You? You're hiding behind your jacket, hoping people think you're strong. He opened his mouth but said nothing. Then she added, gently, you don't have to keep pretending. Chad blinked, unsure of what he felt. Was it guilt? Was it relief? For the first time, he didn't see Amara as a girl in a wheelchair. He saw someone who had walked through fire and come out whole. Someone who didn't need to strike back to win. Someone who chose peace when everyone else would have understood if she'd chosen rage. Then, from behind them, a quiet voice spoke up. I want to be like her. They turned to see a younger student, maybe 12, holding a lunch tray and watching Amara with wide, tear-filled eyes. She wore a back brace and moved slowly. Amara smiled and wheeled over to her. You already are, she said warmly, placing a hand on the girl's shoulder. The students nearby watched in silence, something shifting in the air. Respect. Admiration. Understanding. As Amara rolled away with the younger student beside her, Chad stood alone, speechless for once. And maybe, for the first time in his life, he was listening. The crowd didn't cheer. There was no applause. Just a moment of realization. That real strength doesn't shout. It whispers when the world expects a roar. The sun filtered through the windows of the school gymnasium the next afternoon, casting golden stripes across the polished wood floor. The echo of soft laughter and excited chatter filled the space. In the center of the gym, Amara sat in her wheelchair, hands gloved, sleeves rolled up, a black belt looped around her waist, not as a symbol of ego, but as a mark of experience. She looked out at the group in front of her, nearly a dozen students, mostly girls, some in wheelchairs, others with braces, a few who didn't have any visible disability at all. All of them here to learn one thing: how to be strong, the Amara way. She clapped her hands. All right. First rule of self-defense? A small girl with a prosthetic arm raised her hand shyly. Don't let them define you? Amara beamed. Exactly. As the group began practicing basic blocks and stances, adapted to their own abilities, the gym doors creaked open. Heads turned. Chad stepped inside. He wasn't in his varsity jacket this time. Just a plain t-shirt and jeans. His hands were shoved into his pockets, his eyes uncertain. A few students stiffened. But Amara simply nodded at him, never breaking rhythm. He walked over slowly and stopped near the edge of the class. I'm not here to cause trouble, he said, his voice low. I just want to help. Or learn. Or something. Amara looked at him for a long second. Not with suspicion. But with clarity. Grab a pad, she said. Chad blinked. What? You want to help? Hold a pad. Let the others hit something. There were a few laughs, but Chad smiled and nodded. Okay. Soon, he was kneeling beside one of the students, bracing a padded target as they practiced striking it from their seated position. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't the strongest person in the room. And it didn't bother him. As class wrapped up, Amara gathered everyone in a circle. She looked around, at the faces full of pride, sweat, effort, and joy. You don't have to be loud to be powerful, she said. You don't have to be able to walk, run, or lift weights to protect yourself or others. Power is knowing your worth. It's choosing peace over pain. And it's believing, no matter what, that you matter. One by one, students clapped. Then more. Until the whole gym was filled with applause, not just for Amara, but for each other. As everyone began to leave, Chad lingered behind. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Amara gave a small, genuine smile. Then be better. That's how we move forward. He nodded. As the lights dimmed and the gym emptied, Amara wheeled to the center one last time, looking around at where it had all happened, where fear became purpose, and where judgment turned into community. In a world that tried to write her off, she had become the author of her own story.